You've probably experienced this as a singer, a rapper, or engineer. After watching tons and tons of tutorials on how to mix vocals, you are still not reaching your desired results. So welcome back guys to another video, and in this video I'm going to show you step by step what you need to know about how to record vocals in your studio, bedroom, or maybe record someone else's vocals. A lot of tutorials show you how to mix a vocal, but it all starts with the recording. So those videos don't show you the critical steps in the beginning. So I see it like this. Could the world's best chef cook an amazing dish using shitty ingredients? No. And the same applies to mixing. Using shitty samples or sounds makes it pretty damn hard to achieve a good end result. So my golden rule is it's mixing, not fixing. So starting off with a decent vocal recording makes everything much easier. And this is exactly what I'm going to show you in this video. For this video I've invited Bobby G, who is a rapper, beat maker, and sound and recording engineer. Funny fact, I've known him since primary school. And he just released his new album, which is called Southside Stimulus. It's out now. The link will be in the description, and it would mean a lot if you would check it out. So what exactly will be covered in this tutorial? So first I'm going to talk about the equipment which you need. So we're going to talk about the microphones, audio interface, and cables. Then I'm going to talk about a little bit about the room treatment, some simple tricks. And then we're going to show you how to record a vocal, mix a vocal, and eventually master the whole track so it's ready for release. And this is a step which is missing in all of those mixing tutorials. So we're basically going to show you how to start from scratch and eventually end up with a final product. And we're also giving away a free vocal chain. So this will be a project which you could just open up and start recording, and everything is set ready. The link will also be in the description. So with all this being said, let's get started. So first we're going to talk about microphones, and there are three main types of microphones. So first let's start off with the dynamic microphone. Dynamic microphones are the most robust and reliable microphones available. Dynamic microphones have a cardioid polar pattern or a unidirectional pattern. And this basically means the microphone will pick up the sound from where you point it at. So right now the microphone is pointed at my mouth. So this basically means it's just recording the sound from my mouth and nothing from the sides or from behind the microphone. So this basically means it cancels out all the sounds from your room which you don't want in your recording. So being unidirectional allows you to pinpoint the microphone where you want it, which can be very useful in a room which isn't well treated. Dynamic microphones also tend to boost the mid and high frequencies, but have a little bit of a roll off when it comes to the lower frequencies. But it also really depends on the voice. And it also tends to make the recording a little bit more warmer, which may not be as accurate or as pure as other microphones. So the second main microphone is a condenser microphone. So condenser microphones are a little bit more sophisticated than dynamic microphones. But that added sophistication comes with added cost and fragility. But when we put price to the side for a minute, the condenser microphone is way more balanced than a dynamic microphone. Also, the quality and the accuracy of the recording is way higher than a dynamic microphone. But a condenser microphone is also way more sensitive, so they aren't great for loud sources. But they are well balanced, great for picking up soft sounds, and add a lot of detail to the recording. And they also tend to have a little bit of a high pump. So this will add more clarity to your recording. But that's something which also really depends on the type of voice you have. So in the end, this will make it sound more natural and not muffled. As well as the cardioid pattern, a condenser microphone is both bidirectional and omnidirectional. So bidirectional basically means it can pick up sound from the front and from behind. And omnidirectional basically means it's picking up sound from all around the microphone. So when you're recording in your bedroom, the omnidirectional microphone isn't the way to go because it cancels out nothing, and this makes it pretty damn hard to get a clean recording. Condenser microphones come either in a large diaphragm and small. So this basically means how larger the diaphragm is, the more low frequencies it's picking up. And the smaller, how more high frequencies compared to low frequencies is picking up. And a condenser microphone also requires a 48 volts phantom power in order to work. So before you purchase a condenser microphone, make sure to check out if your audio interface is able to supply this phantom power. But we're also going to cover this in this video later. And the third type of microphone is a ribbon microphone. And ribbon microphones are also the worst thing or the best thing, depending on who you ask. And they are by far the most expensive and more fragile, but they're also very sensitive. So ribbon microphones are also bidirectional, so they're picking up sound from the front and from behind, and they add an authentic, warm feeling to your recording. So if this is something which you want to go for, you maybe should consider a ribbon microphone. But if you're a beginner, buying a ribbon microphone is basically the same as renting an expensive studio in Los Angeles. So it's definitely overkill. So there are also more subtypes when it comes to microphones, but just for the purpose of the video, I'm gonna cover those three. So which one should you choose? If your room isn't that well treated, you should definitely go for the dynamic mic, and especially a unidirectional mic. So this one picks up sound just from your mouth, cancels out anything else, and just makes it way easier to get a clean recording. And in most of the cases, they are also the cheapest. But it also depends on so many things. So for example, the voice. Does your voice contain a lot of low frequencies or high frequencies? So there is no exact answer at all. So it's something which is really specific on what you want to achieve when it comes to recording your vocal. So let's create a kind of conclusion. So a dynamic microphone is the best way to go when your room isn't treated that well. So when you're just starting out, I think personally you should definitely check out a dynamic mic. But when you're a little bit more advanced, your room sounds pretty good, you should definitely consider a condenser mic, because they are way more balanced than a dynamic mic, and I think this gives you the possibility to create greater end results. And when it comes to ribbon microphones, I do not recommend them. And when it comes to picking a big or small diaphragm, it depends on how much low frequencies your voice contains. But in the end, it's something very personal and specific. So right now, let's talk about your recording interface, because this one is just as important as the microphone. So getting a high quality audio interface enables you to get high quality audio in and out of your computer. And this also enables you to connect essential studio gear to your computer. So what do you need to know about an audio interface? So let's talk about the connectivity, the audio resolution, the amount of analog in and outputs, the 48 volts phantom power, and the preamp. So I highly recommend this Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. I'm using it right now. And I think this one is the way to go for many producers. So let's open up the comparison table, and the connectivity is USB-C, so you don't want to use a lot of dongles. They will add extra noise to your recording. Protocol is still USB 2.0, but that's perfectly fine. As you can see, this one includes the 48 volts phantom power, which you need to connect a condenser microphone. This one has two instrument inputs, so those are on the front, those XLR inputs right here, with two gain knobs. So for example, you want to record your voice and for example a guitar, this one is perfect. And the audio resolution is 24 bits at a 192 kilohertz rate. And this is also perfectly fine for your home studio. So I should highly recommend you getting this audio interface. And make sure you pick the 3rd generation, which is the most recent one. And this one also includes two line outputs for the right and left monitor. So the Scarlett 2i2 provides you with everything you need. And I think it's around $160. So it's definitely an investment, but I think it's worth every penny. So for example, I'm using the Scarlett 2i2 1st generation for I think almost 6 years. And it's still handling everything perfectly. So that's all you need to know about audio interfaces. So right now, cables. So why spend $1,000 on your laptop and get the cheapest cable possible? That's definitely not the way to go. Buying quality cables is important. Make sure you buy shielded cables. Shielding reduces noise, and this is something which you definitely don't want when it comes to recording vocals. And it also prevents impact from signals, for example, your phone or other electric components, which is also called electromagnetic radiation. Shielding prevents crosstalk from cables near each other. So cheap cables increase noise and could add buzzes to your recording. So make sure when you buy any cables, the cables are high quality and those cables last a long time. So right now let's talk about room treatment. Treating the place where you record your vocals is very important. You could invest a lot of money in your microphone audio interface and still not reach the desired results. Treating a room begins with reducing background noises, such as a fan or an open window. So reducing background noise, for example, a fan of your PC, is something which a microphone could pick up, and you would definitely want to avoid noises like this. So make sure you eliminate every sound in a room. And this also depends, of course, on the microphone which you are using. And this will determine how your room should be treated. So the idea is to dampen the sound, so it sounds like a blank canvas, but you don't want to dampen it too much, because otherwise your vocal will sound completely dead. So a room between 3 to 5 feet is perfect for recording your vocals. So for example, add a bed, some curtains, a carpet will definitely reduce echo or reverb in the room. And this is something you definitely want to avoid when it comes to recording a vocal. A small room will usually muffle the sound because low frequencies will resonate more than high frequencies. And this makes it way harder to create a clean sound. And a room which is too large will cause a lot of echoes and reverb and will definitely need more room treatment. So take a look at your current room and make sure to add some objects which absorb sound. So I already mentioned curtains, bed sheets, a carpet, your bed. Those will all absorb sound. And for example, a plain wall will just reflect the sound. And this is something which you definitely want to avoid. So if your room has a lot of plain walls, you could maybe use some acoustic panels or some shelves, anything just to fill up the room. And this will in the end reduce reflections on your wall. And if your room sounds pretty good, you could also improve your recording by using a reflection filter. So for example, if you look up reflection filter on Amazon, those look like this. They aren't that expensive and definitely will improve your recording. So a reflection filter will block unwanted sounds and reflections from your room. And you will end up with crisper and clearer audio. But something which you have to keep in mind, if your room sounds shitty, a lot of reflections, the reflection filter will not solve it. So they both could improve your recording. So when it comes to room treatment, multiple factors will influence your final voice recording. And the main thing you just want to avoid is reflections in your room, which cause reverb or echo. So I think I covered everything about the equipment you need to know. But first things first, the best gear is the gear you already own. So don't purchase new things which you don't need. And also don't compare your vocals to industry vocals, because they're using just expensive mics. Most of the times they record in a studio which is very well treated, and you just can't compete with them. And the simplest improvements make huge difference. So make sure to improve step by step. Don't take all the steps at once, but make sure to improve step by step to maximize potential. And this is exactly what Bobby G did when he started recording his rap vocals. So right now he is going to continue the tutorial, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
What's up everybody, it's Bobby G. Shout out to Seven for putting me on, you know we go way back. Today I'm gonna show you what went into the recording process for my song, The Warm Up, out now on all streaming services. I'm just gonna show you what went into recording it, mixing it, mastering it, and we're gonna walk through the whole process. So first things first, you gotta pick a beat. Make sure you don't pick a whack beat. Don't pick a beat that's not well mixed. If you don't like the mix when you're recording to it, probably not gonna like it after you're done recording to it. So make sure you pick the right beat and don't pick a whack beat. All right, so I got the beat right here. And the first thing I gotta do is make sure my project BPM matches up with the beat. So how to figure out the BPM of the beat? There's a lot of ways to do this. Either you have the producer tell you, easy enough, or you choose auto detect right here. You right click this one, auto detect. Right here, it's embedded in the file, so we know it's 120 BPM. So imagine it's not embedded and you wanna find out what the BPM is. The producer didn't tell you, you can't reach him. You can always just try to match the transients in the beat. So I pull it down around here. So you notice the first kick hits after 4 bars and then everything lines up. So then you know you have the right BPM. I tend to do this method more often than not because the auto detect BPM is not always reliable, and most of the times the BPM is not embedded in the file. All right, so then we want to set up the channels for recording. I usually remove this one from the master. So this one doesn't have a master output. and I'll link it to another track. This will be my effects channel, and this is the channel I'm gonna use to record in. So I don't want any effects on my recording. This just gives me more space to edit stuff after recording. So you want to select your input. Right now I'm recording on input 1, and as you can see, as I select the input, it immediately comes through in FL, and it goes right to my effects channel because I linked it there. So linking your recording channel to your effects channel will just make sure that you don't fuck up your recording with effects that you don't necessarily want. And this just gives you more space to work with when you're done recording. Make sure your input is a nice healthy signal, and this makes sure that your vocal is not too soft, because if we can't hear what you're saying and you're going to turn it up in the mix, you're going to bring up a lot of unwanted noise that's in the recording. So we don't want that. We want the vocal to be around -12 to -6 dB when we record it. Check, 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 check. Yeah. All right. So then we're going to set up some effects. I like to record with just auto-tune and some small compression. So for the compression, I'm just using the Fruity limiter. I'm setting it to about 3.5 ratio right here. I'm gonna put the threshold around the middle of my signal right there. So what this will do is this will reduce the peaks that I hear on my headphones while I'm recording. So for auto-tune, I like to use the Waves Tune Real-Time. I use the mono version because I record in mono. So the key of this beat is B flat minor. I just happen to know the key of this beat. If you don't happen to know the key of your beat, you can ask the producer once again. And if he doesn't know the key of your beat, you can use a program called Key Finder. The link will be in the description. It's pretty accurate. I haven't had any trouble with using it, and I use it often enough, so definitely check that out. I like my auto-tune in my effects channel to be on overload. I want it to retune at maximum speed, simply because this helps me while I record, just stay in key with the beat. And oftentimes it just gives me new ideas while I record because auto-tune kicks in and puts you in a different direction. All right, so the next step is setting up your microphone. For the purpose of this video, I'm using an SM7. So the SM7 is a really good mic for recording on the go. For example, in less than ideal situations, because it doesn't pick up a lot of room. It's a very clean sounding mic. It's typically used for podcasts, radio, that kind of stuff. So I use it when I'm on the go for writing camps, when I go to other people's studio. But when I'm at my home studio, I tend to use a condenser mic. With the condenser mic, you typically stay a little further from the mic. But with the dynamic microphones, and especially the SM7, you nearly eat up the mic, so you get real close. Typically, when you get closer to the mic, you'll have more low frequencies. And when you get away from the mic, it'll pick up more room and it'll pick up more high frequencies. So again, a lot of this relies on personal preference, taste, what you want to do with your song. All right, so then we get to the mic stand. So for this video, I'm recording sitting down. It's actually my preference. I usually record my songs while I'm sitting down. So I have the mic right here. So while recording, I prefer to keep my mic a little too high. And the reason for this is so I keep my back straight, it keeps my posture straight, and this makes me more able to deliver on vocals because your breathing is automatically in control. All right, so I lowered my chair for the recording. So I'm putting headphones on to record. I'm making sure I don't have any output to my monitors and that my headphones are at a good loudness level. So if you have latency and you want to fix it, typically it's your buffer size or your CPU or whatever. So I'm lowering the buffer size. Typically for recording, I tend to use, and a lot of people I know tend to use, about 46 samples. So this depends on what your CPU can handle, but this will reduce the latency. We're finally ready to actually record, so let's get to it. I'm selecting this channel because I want to record to this channel right here. I have my effects set up through this channel right here. I have the monitors turned off, headphones at a comfortable level. I hit record, audio into the playlist as an audio clip. Yeah. I don't give a fuck what the majors say. The money ain't taking my pains away. I don't need them leeching my pay for 8. You seen the numbers I gained today. I shoot you to warm up, I came to play. Southside where I make my way. I must have been hooping and made a play. If they saying Bobby, let's fade away. So I'm just gonna do a few takes. So I'm muting everything else. Only the beat will play. I'm just gonna record this part a couple times. We got a few takes in. So the next thing we do is we start cutting and selecting the best takes. Let me just mute this so I no longer have any output from the mic. So there's actually only 2 reasons why you'd cut in a recording. Just because you prefer one over the other, or because your timing is off and you're trying to fix the timing. The channels are automatically linked to the channel I recorded in, so that's channel 1. Right now, to check them out, I'm gonna set them to channel 3. This is gonna be my main vocal channel, so let's listen to it on a beat. I don't give a fuck what the majors say. The money ain't taking my pains away. I don't need them leeching my pay for 8. You seen the numbers. So for cutting, the tools I use are the cutting tool, and I make sure I select the magnet right here. Make sure it doesn't snap to anything in the playlist. I only use 2 shortcuts for this, really. I use Shift, and then when you left click, you can cut in a straight line through multiple recordings. And when you right click, it'll shorten those recordings. So, like so. Also, when I'm doing this, I set the bleed to generic. This makes sure I don't have any pops when I cut a recording, so it doesn't pop when this starts to play. So for fixing the timing, I just look at the waveform. I look at where I want it to be, and I can see the peak in the waveform. I want it to be on beat. For example, this right here. I don't give a fuck what the majors say. The money ain't taking my pains away. Don't be shy about cutting. This takes a shitload of time, so we're not gonna get into it too much. This is something that takes up as much time as you allow it, because you can go all in with this. You can even take this word out. So select it with Command and then lower it down into the other vocal. Put this on beat, put this. No one's gonna hear this. Pay for 8. No one's gonna hear this difference between those 2 vocals. So you can get real crazy with it. I've seen people cut up entire sentences. It's ridiculous, but that's it for cutting. So after I have my main vocal, I like to record doubles. There's a lot of ways to do this. Again, all depends on your style. I'm just gonna record the same take that I did, and I'm gonna cut doubles from that. And a lot of people like to record doubles 2 times, and they pan one left and they pan the other one right. I just like to use a vocal doubler, which is in a plugin that does exactly that thing, but with just one vocal. So I'm gonna show you. Yeah. I don't give a fuck what the majors say. The money ain't taking my pains away. I don't need them leeching my pay for 8. You seen the numbers I gained today. I shoot you to warm up, I came to play. Southside where I make my way. I must have been hooping and made a play. They saying Bobby, let's fade away. Again, in this, you can cut all the breathing spaces, take out any noises that you might not want to hear in the final recording. Make sure they line up with the beat. But that's it for cutting and recording. All right, so by now, you've recorded your main vocal and your doubles. That's really it for this track. I didn't use any other vocal layer, only a main vocal and doubles. When it comes to harmonies and ad-lib tracks and other stuff like that, the same rules apply. You record it, you cut it, then you clean it up in the mix, and then you add effects. We're gonna get into that in a moment. So by now, you have your main vocal and your doubles. So I'm pulling up the main vocal and the doubles from the original track. And right here, I recorded the verse. I'm linking those to our channels. So now we're ready to mix. The first thing I do when mixing is cutting all the low frequencies from the vocal, because they're really not necessary. You won't hear the difference. I tend to cut around 80 Hertz. It's just a simple low cut. You can use any EQ for this, but I prefer the FabFilter EQs. The next thing I use is a compressor. You can use the Fruity limiter for this. Switch it to compressor mode. I like it around 3.1 ratio. I take the threshold. The majors say the money ain't taking my pains away. I don't need them leeching my pay for 8. You seen the numbers. And I put it around the middle of the vocal. Next, I take another EQ. I cut the low end again because, as you see, there's always some left over. Then I like to take the boominess out of the voice. So for my vocal, that's pretty low. That's around 150, 160. I just do it -2 dB. The majors say the money ain't There's a lot of low end that we don't need for a hip hop track. So I'm taking that out -6 at around 750. And I like to boost from around 4.5K because this really increases the clarity of the vocal track, and I boost around 5 dB. All right, so this is typically how an EQ would look for one of my rap vocals. So the next plugin I use is a de-esser. I tend to use 2 de-essers, and I like to use the FabFilter DS. I like to use this because I can use it split band. I turn up the range all the way. Split band means that I can use this right here to make it look for certain frequencies, and it'll only lower those frequencies from the vocal, and it'll leave all the other ones untouched. So I take about 6K to 14K, and I just leave the threshold where it is, because with the vocal input set at the levels that I used, this is the right threshold to use. So that'll take out the harsh frequencies from the S. Then I use another de-esser. I set it to split band again. Now I'm taking the lower frequencies from around 2K, 4.5, 5-ish. You might wonder why I do this. The frequencies from around 5 to 6K are left untouched, and that's typically where your pronunciation lies. This makes sure you don't drown out your pronunciation. Up the volume. So I'm just gonna copy this because this will apply to my other vocals as well. It's just cleanup, it's not effects. Right click, file, save mixer track state. I'm gonna drag it over there. It'll change the name as well, so I just change that back. Doubles, there you go. And now this track is the same as my vocal track. So after cleanup, it's time for effects. I'm gonna use Waves Autotune. So I'm using Waves Tune. You can really use any Autotune with this. I don't have a preference, I just use what's available. You set the Autotune to the right key. Make sure it's in the right key first. The major say the money ain't taking my pains away. I don't need them leeching my pay for 8. You seen the numbers I gained today. I showed you the warm up, I came to play. Southside where I make my way. I must have been hooping and made a play. If they saying Bobby has fade away. Alright, so now I've cleaned up the vocal. I've used the Autotune effect. So cleanup, tuning, and the next thing is just effects to brighten it up. So I'm using the vocal doubler plugin from Isotope. It's a free plugin and it's really good. It just gives your vocal a little more body and just makes it sit nice in the mix. So I tend to use it like this. Variation about 60, separation 100%. I set the amount between 20, 25 for a main vocal. And it just takes your vocal from this mono sound, broadens it up a little, and gives it a little more body. So the next thing I use is a delay. For this, I actually like to use the Fruity delay too. I lower the cut down. You don't want it to be so loud that you can't understand the main vocal anymore. So I cut a lot. I set it to about 30%. Then I lower the volume down all the way, and I make sure it's in time with the beat. You can just right-click time, set, take 4 steps. I lower the volume to about 5%. The only thing I want to do now is add a reverb. I really like the Valhalla reverbs, especially this one, Vintage Verb. It's so good. You get a ton of customization. I love it. You set the mode to plate. At least that's what I prefer on vocals. This is all just taste. You can take it whatever direction you want it. There's nothing wrong in doing anything just because you like it. Mixing is more an art form than a technicality, even though a lot of people like to tell you otherwise. I set the mix to about 10%. I like a long decay. I set the pre-delay to about 25 milliseconds. The pre-delay is how long the reverb waits to kick in. So this gives just about enough time for my vocal to play and then afterwards the reverb will kick in. I tend to use a size between 50 and 60. Cut all the lows, because who needs the lows in reverb? And then I cut highs about 3K. So it's a very narrow reverb and it sounds like this. The major say the money ain't taking my pains away. I don't need them leeching my pay for 8. You seen the numbers I gained today. I showed you the warm up, I came to play. Southside where I make my way. I must have been hooping and made a play. If they saying Bobby has fade away. All right, so that's pretty good. As for the doubles, I want to use the same Autotune. So I can just use save preset as and drag it over to the doubles channel. It'll copy the auto tune with the same settings to the doubles channel. I'm gonna use a vocal doubler as well. So I'm just gonna drag that. Except for this one, I want it to be very wide. I want the doubles to really fill up the room. So I'm gonna set it to about 85%. Again, I want it to have a delay, just basic. And then I want it to have a reverb, but I want this reverb to be bigger. So increase the size a little bit. And I want it to be more present in the mix. So I'm increasing the mix right here. So now it's just leveling, making sure the vocal levels are set right.
The major say the money ain't taking my pains away. I don't need them leeching my pay for eight. You seen the numbers I gained today. I showed you the warm up, I came to play. Southside where I make my way. I must have been hooping and made a play. If they saying Bobby has fade away. Yeah. They flex with a deal like it's great to slave.
All right, so that's basically it for this track. So imagine you have an ad-lib track as well. I use the same rules for cleanup or harmony track, just the same type of cleanup. And then the only thing that really changes is the effects I use and the volume. And that's just, taste. What do you want to do with it? Where do you want to take it? But this track is ready to be mastered. So I increased the buffer size again, just because this makes the mastering plugins easier to load. So for mastering, I use a plugin called The Glue. It's just a compressor. I really like it for mastering. I think it adds a little character as well. So I'm just gonna compress it a little bit.
The money ain't taking my pains away. I don't need them leeching my pay for eight. You seen the numbers I gained today. I showed you the warm up, I came to play. Southside where I make my way. I must have been hooping and made a play. If they saying Bobby has fade away.
Just reducing the peaks a little bit. Then I'm taking a limiter. We just use Fruity limiter for this.
Don't give a fuck what the majors say. The money ain't taking my pains away. I don't need them leeching my pay for eight. You seen the numbers I gained today.
Drag it out for a better view.
Southside where I make my way. I must have been hooping and
just taking out the peaks right here. So these are peaks in both the vocal and the beat. I just reduce them a little bit. Then I take another glue compressor and I compress a little bit again, but this time I'm using the sidechain. And I set it to about 800 hertz, 700, 800 hertz. Just make sure the low end doesn't get compressed, so the kick will still hit, the 808 will still hit, but the top end is getting compressed.
I don't give a fuck what the majors say. The money ain't taking my pains away. I don't need them leeching my pay
Try
for
to keep
eight.
it just a little bit, just like 3-4 dB.
Southside where I make my way. I must have been hooping and made a play. If they saying Bobby has fade away.
And then the only thing left here, if you want to go real basic with it, the only thing left here is using a maximizer to increase the volume, get it to the right levels. So if I select this option, and I take, integrate it. It'll show me my LUFS or LUFS. This is a really good measurement for loudness levels. Just let it reduce a little bit.
Flex with my balance is great to save. And mic up a crib if the rate's okay. Then ran out that bitch like a stay okay. I laid out the plan so I stay okay. Most of them ain't here to stay okay. Yeah.
I like to mix to about -10 LUFS. It just depends on how large you like it. I like to maintain some dynamics, but still, really pump up the volume. So around -8 to -10, -12, that'll do the trick.
Don't give a fuck what the majors say. The money ain't
This is the
taking my
final
pains
result.
away. I don't need them leeching my pay for eight. You seen the numbers I gained today. I showed you the warm up, I came to play. Southside where I make my way. I must have been hooping and made a play. If they saying Bobby has fade away.
So typically, I like to not overthink this shit. So I just bounce it, load it up in Google Drive or whatever program I like to use, and then just ride around with it, listen to it in the car, play it for friends, and take notes, just minor tweaks, just a little reduction in the volume lows or just a little increase in the doubles volume. I take these notes, so next time I hit the studio, I just go through my notes, I execute every one of them, I bounce again, I ride around with it again, and I just tweak it, just little by little, I just tweak it to a final result. So I just bounce and re-listen over and over. So imagine if this vocal needs a little more low end, then I'll just reduce this, Just bring this up a little. I'll bounce it again, take it to Google Drive, ride around with it, you know, make a lot of little tweaks over time, you know. I hope this video was helpful for you. Shout out to Seven for putting me on. If you want to listen to this song and the rest of my album, Southside Stimulus, the link is in the description. If you want to download my template for recording sessions, you can find a link for that in the description as well. So, you know, have fun with it. Good luck with your next track and take care.
So that's the video, guys. I hope this was very helpful for you. If you have any more questions, make sure to drop them in the comments and I will answer them, or maybe Bobby G will answer them. Make sure to download the free project. The link will also be in the description, and this one includes the free vocal chain, so make sure to check it out. And I think this will really help you guys starting recording your vocals and making it much easier and simple. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave it a thumbs up and also make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope to see you in one of my next tutorials.